Hi, this is your host. Today's question is, can I explain the unsolved mystery of the Lost Colony of Roanoke? As many of you know, I am a big fan of unsolved mysteries. So when I was given this topic, I was really excited to do it. Unfortunately, I don't have all the answers. In fact, there are no confirmed answers, hence the unsolved part. But I do have some theories that I'd like to share with you today, and we're going to start with a little background information. The year is 1587. England's Queen Elizabeth I had granted a charter to Sir Walter Raleigh to establish settlements in North America. Raleigh chose an area on the east coast of what is now the United States, between the 36th and 37th parallels north. He named it Virginia in honor of the Virgin Queen, and the first settlement was established on an island in a large inlet. They named it Roanoke. It was the first English settlement in North America. There were 3 attempts at establishing colonies in the Roanoke area. The first 2 failed due to a lack of supplies. The third one, however, became a full-fledged colony with about 120 settlers living there by 1590. Of those settlers, 117 were English, 2 were Spanish, and 1 was a clergyman from Wales. There were also several children born in the colony, making the total population around 130 people. The colony was a typical settlement of the time period. There was a fort for defense, houses for the settlers to live in, and even a church. The colonists grew food and raised livestock, and they named their settlement New England. In 1590, an expedition arrived from England to resupply the colony. They found the fort abandoned and no one from the colony anywhere to be found. Supplies were dropped off anyway, and the expedition left. 3 years later, another supply ship arrived only to find the same thing, an abandoned fort and no colonists. This would become known as the Lost Colony of Roanoke. There are several theories as to what happened to the colonists. One is that they were killed and eaten by Native Americans. Another is that they were taken by an alien spacecraft. And still another is that they simply moved away. Let's look at each of these theories individually. First, let's consider the evidence for and against the colonists being killed by the Native Americans. For this theory, we can point to the fact that the fort was abandoned and no trace of the colonists was ever found. It's also true that the Native Americans in the area were known to be hostile towards the colonists. The English explorer John White, who visited the colony in 1590, reported seeing signs of recent battles near the settlement, including broken weapons and fortifications. However, there is no evidence that any of the colonists were actually killed by the Native Americans. No bodies or mass graves have ever been found. And besides, the Native Americans didn't have a motive for killing the colonists. The 2 groups had been in contact for several years, and there had been no major conflicts up until this point. It's also worth noting that if the colonists had been killed in a battle, it's likely that some of them would have survived and fled into the wilderness. But no survivors were ever found. For these reasons, I believe that the colonists were not killed by the Native Americans. Now let's consider the evidence for and against the colonists being taken by an alien spacecraft. For this theory, we can point to the fact that there is no evidence that the colonists were killed by anything or anyone. Also, the sudden and unexplained disappearance of an entire colony of people is certainly intriguing. However, there is no evidence to support this theory. There are no eyewitness accounts of aliens visiting the colony, nor is there any physical evidence that aliens were ever there. Furthermore, there is no reason to believe that aliens would have taken an interest in the colony in the first place. We can safely say that aliens did not take the colonists. Finally, let's consider the evidence for and against the colonists simply moving away. This theory is supported by several pieces of evidence. First, the fort was abandoned but showed no signs of a hasty departure. This suggests that the colonists may have planned to leave the settlement. Second, the colonists would have had ample opportunity to escape into the wilderness if they had been attacked by the Native Americans. However, no survivors were ever found. Third, the colony was located in an area that was largely unexplored by Europeans at the time. If the colonists had managed to survive in the wilderness, it's likely that they would have eventually been found. However, this has not happened. All of this evidence points to the conclusion that the colonists most likely simply moved away. But where did they go? Unfortunately, there is no evidence to answer this question. It's possible that the colonists moved further inland to escape the threat of attack from the Native Americans, or perhaps they relocated to another area of the coast altogether. It's even possible that the colonists made their way to the south and joined the Spanish colony in present-day Florida. However, none of these theories can be confirmed. It's important to note that the mystery of the Lost Colony of Roanoke has captured the imagination of people all over the world for centuries. There have been countless books, articles, and even television shows about the colony. However, none of these have been able to provide a definitive answer as to what happened to the colonists. There is one more piece of information that I should share with you. Archaeologists have conducted numerous excavations at the site of the lost colony in an effort to find out what happened to the colonists. However, these efforts have been hampered by the fact that much of the physical evidence has been destroyed over the years. The fort itself was built over and used as a source of building material for other structures. Additionally, much of the site has been plowed over and used for farming. Despite these challenges, archaeologists have been able to find some artifacts that provide clues as to what happened to the colonists. For example, in 1932, a coin was found that was minted in England in 1589. This suggests that the colonists were still alive and well in 1589, and that they may have simply moved away rather than being killed or taken by aliens. Another interesting discovery was made in 1984, when archaeologists found the remains of a woman and child who had been killed by a single blow to the head. While this certainly could be evidence that the colonists were killed by the Native Americans, it's also possible that this was a case of murder most foul. Perhaps the woman and child were killed by one of the colonists. Maybe someone was trying to build a case for when rescuers inevitably came to the colony. I don't know. I know this isn't the answer that everyone wants to hear, but I genuinely believe that the colonists most likely simply moved away. Sure, it's possible that they were killed by the Native Americans or taken by an alien spacecraft, but there's just no evidence to support either of those theories. The colonists would have faced tremendous challenges if they had attempted to move away, yet somehow they managed to do it. And that's the mystery. What do you think happened to the Lost Colony of Roanoke? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, check out my others. Thank you for watching. Remember to subscribe so you don't miss my next video. Thanks for watching.